And good evening. Hello out there. This is Lady Lou, the baby boomer babe, and this is our Ask the Experts show. We are so thrilled to be here tonight. We have it's wonderful people to talk with tonight. And I'm going to introduce our wonderful Marian LaSalle. She's our techie wizard. Hi, Marian.
Hi.
Hi. And then we have our delightful Ilene Dillon. She's our social worker and our therapist and much more author. Hello, Ilene.
Hi, thank you.
Yay. And our very, very special guest is Michael Bryant. He is Bryant, excuse me. I'm sorry, messed up the name. Anyway, Michael is from Baltimore, Maryland, and he is known as the Unstucker. He's going to help us get unstuck tonight. I can't wait. So there you go. We will let Ilene lead off with the first question.
All right. Hi, Michael. It's really nice to have you here. So the first question that comes to my mind, we were talking just a little bit before the show started, and you said, well, nobody ever gave you a course on how to what to consult or how to run your life. Right. So my first question is, what is being stuck? If you're the unstucker, what's being stuck?
Being stuck is a great question. So being stuck is having some kind of a goal or objective and not being able to reach it. So it can come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Sometimes you want to do something, but you just don't have the confidence, and that keeps you stuck. Sometimes you just don't know where to start, and that keeps you stuck. Sometimes you're overly concerned about what other people are going to say about what you do. And so all those kinds of things together, you get started, but you don't know how to stay on course. So all these kinds of things together can kind of conspire to kind of keep you unstuck and kind of keep you in this kind of malaise and really keep you from kind of moving forward.
You know, it makes me wonder sometimes about how we can get ourselves in a situation where we feel stuck. But it does happen to all of us, no matter how rich we are, how loved we are, how protected we are. It doesn't matter if we live in Beverly Hills or, it doesn't really matter where we are in our lives. Sometimes we just feel like we don't know what to do. We're stuck.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with expectations that people have. We do a lot of I should be able to do this, I should be able to do that. There are numbers of things that adults have, for some reason, told themselves they're supposed to know how to do. I call them adult supposed to's. So adults are supposed to know how to form and maintain relationships. They're supposed to know how to manage money. They're supposed to know how to raise children, and they're supposed to know how to work. Why? Because they're supposed to, because they're adults. Now, the problem with any of these things is there's actually no guidance in a lot of these kinds of things that people have. So there's a lot of feeling inadequate and that they're just not enough, and they don't know what to do next, but they have sort of a feeling of almost being almost embarrassed sometimes because, well, I'm a big person. I should know how to do this. Well, you don't know how to read just because somebody gave you a book. You don't know how to drive just because somebody gave you car keys. So just because the need arises in your life doesn't mean you're going to know how to do it if you don't have the skills.
So, Michael, years ago, I gave interest and preference tests to people who were mustering out of the Army at the Presidio in San Francisco at the end of the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And since nobody was supervising me, I know you guys have heard this story before, nobody was supervising me. So I decided to ask them what their dream was first before I gave them their results. Uh-huh. And 99 times out of 100, their dream fit what their test results were. Sure. And they would tell me their dream, and then to a person, within 5 minutes, they'd talk themselves out of it. They were too old. They were too young. Well, how does that fit in with what you're talking about?
So I call them the death words. I call them the death words because they kill dreams. Practical, realistic, feasible, doable, possible, workable. Those are all made up words. Those words are they're pretend words. So because the bottom line is, what is impractical for one person is completely practical for somebody else. And we tend to be limited, really, at the end of the day, by our imagination and creativity. So anything that we can really figure out a way to do, we can do. What happens is people have just sort of been preconditioned to think in terms of limited goals and limited expectations. And there's a bazillion reasons why, well, at my age and, and with my background or with my education. And we kind of have this view that there's two kind of people in the world. There are like the adults, like the people that make the train run on time. These are like the people that are reliable and dependable, and they may or may not like what they do, but they're responsible. And then we have this other group, and they're kind of like Peter Pan. They're not like real adults, and these are people who want to be like happy and, and they think they can do anything. And we kind of look at them, and we've made this decision that there's two kind of people that get to do what they want, and then the rest of us who just have to kind of walk into walls. And so what happens every once in a while is somebody we know messes this whole thing up because somebody ordinary does something extraordinary. And we know them. They're like a regular person to us. Well, now we're in trouble because if they can do their extraordinary things, why am I not doing my extraordinary things? So to get out of that, we say, well, I just really didn't know them as well as I thought I did. They were really like I had them in the wrong box. They're just a little bit special, and I just didn't catch that. So I'm excused to not do what I want to do. So that's why I think it happens.
Thank you.
Wow.
I have a question for you. So in my life, I'm what you call a doer. Okay. So people know that I do a lot. I wear a lot of different hats and things like that. And sometimes I meet people who I feel aren't doing anything at all. Okay. And it doesn't seem to bother them that they're stuck in a situation. And I always want to help them, move along, but that's really not what they want. No. Is there something that you can maybe give me a suggestion on? Should I just keep my nose out of it, or should I, try to get them moving, get them unstuck a little bit?
It's a really great question. And so the first thing I think that's important to understand is that the only reality that I know of is difference. That's the only thing I know that's true is that we're different. We think different, we believe different, we come from different places. And so the first thing is to understand that people are not us. So they're not going to have our thoughts and they're not going to have our beliefs. Well, why would they? Because they're like not us. And so when we sometimes come to somebody with our notion of practical, realistic, doable, feasible, that's not theirs. So in many ways, we're talking a foreign language. And it can put us in a position where it's unintentional, but we can begin to judge them. And sometimes it can be judging with a small j and sometimes with a rather large J. And the antidote for that is always curiosity. So I see. So I was thinking maybe you might be happy doing this, but you're telling me that you wouldn't. Like, tell me about that. Like, well, tell me about like why you think different than I do. Because not understanding difference is not being off base, it's being delusional. Because no one is us. And we kind of all get stuck in the maze of our own minds, thinking on some level other people must think our thoughts or believe what we believe or want. Because that's why we say to each other, like, you like that? Like, you went where? You do that?
I get that a lot, and Ilene can relate because my dream is to sell the house and buy a motorhome and just travel around in a camper van. And most people are like, what? Why would you want to do that? I mean, that doesn't even sound like right, Ilene? Have you ever gotten that?
You really want to do that?
Actually does it.
That's what I do, Michael. For about 3 years, I've lived and traveled in my RV. I'm kind of homebound at my son's right now for COVID reasons. Right. But really, Marian, most people say, that's my dream. That's what I want to do. But how many people actually do it? I was thinking, Michael, I was a single parent for many years. And one of the things that I attempted to do, since I was a therapist, I'd see a lot of people who were limited, like you're talking about. They were still operating as if they were kids and they couldn't do stuff. Mm-hmm. So I decided to use this little trick. Every time my kids had a birthday, I would ask them, what is your dream? And I would try to make that dream come true. So I started when my son was 4, and his dream was to fly a jet plane. I don't mean an airliner, but to fly a jet plane. Well, I'm a single parent, didn't have much money, didn't know what I was going to do about it, but a friend of mine who owned a private plane enlisted a friend of hers who was a flight instructor. And for my son's 4th birthday, he actually flew this light plane across the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, right?
Wow.
Now, the next year he wanted a whipped cream fight. It was all different kinds of things. But now I'm staying at my son's home, and I'm looking at him in his early 40s. And I've also stayed with other children of mine, and they don't seem to have this. You know, he was he had me working on a watering system, and he was putting speakers in the ceiling, but he's also a serial entrepreneur, you know, and he doesn't flinch at anything. So I'm kind of curious, do you think if we prepare people in their childhoods that they can do what their mind tells them they want to do?
I think what happens is that as adults, and this is, I mean, I'm a parent of 3, so this is the most important job in the world for which you need to have no qualifications. I mean, you have to have a license to drive a car, but I mean, you can just be a parent, and I mean, it's the most important job ever created, handed off to rank amateurs. I mean, it's incredible. You only have to form another human being, so it's really, you know. So what's going to happen is that it's almost like a rigged deck in some ways. The best parent in the whole world is going to miss some of these things for 2 reasons. First of all, children's needs are insatiable. They have no boundaries. And secondly, they can't language what they want for a long time. So they just developmentally, you can't tell you what they want. So we'll miss a lot of those things, but they're always watching. And it's interesting that I like that question, Ilene, because one of the things I will often tell when I'm talking to my clients, I will often say to them, so what kind of message do you want to send to your children? Because you know they're watching, and they pay very little attention to what you do, and what you say, and they watch what you do. And if what you say doesn't match what you do, they'll follow what you do every time. So it was very important. You know, one of the things I remember with our 3 children was I can remember when my eldest daughter was about 5 years old, and it was funny when, you know, we were talking about working from home earlier. And so when COVID hit and you had to work from home, well, that I've had an office in my home for 40 years. So that was like yesterday for me. It's like, oh, you have to adjust like you did like the day before. So the children always grew up with these strange people coming up and down the stairs into my office, and they never thought anything of it. And I can remember sitting with my daughter when she was about 4 or 5 years old, and I think she was coloring or something. And I said, well, Daddy has to stop right now, because Daddy has a client coming. And I said, you know why Daddy works? And she said, yes, so that we can have money to buy food and toys. And I said, well, that's one of the reasons Daddy works. I said, but the main reason Daddy works is this is Daddy's most favorite way to play. Like, this is how you like to play. This is how Daddy likes to play. So I instilled that in them very, very early. Our entire family is unemployable. None of us can hold a job. I mean, we all work hard. Poor thing. I mean, it's got to be in the DNA. I mean,
true in my family too, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I started it. You know, my wife can't work. I mean, we're a mess. So they just grew up with this model that you can do what you want to do with your life, because they just watched us. You know, so it's all made up. So it just occurred to me, like, why don't you make it the way you want? It's made up anyway. Like, why don't you make it what you like? I mean, because, you know, does anybody know what they're doing? No. I mean, how many people at the end of the day, the end of the day matches what they set out at the beginning of the day to do? I mean, you know, I was, you know, after dinner tonight, you know, I took a pair of scissors and cut the end of my finger. That wasn't in my plan. I did not have that on my agenda at all.
That's a lot of creativity, Michael.
Yeah. I made for an interesting story right now, so I got something out.
But that's a really good point that we don't even retain or maintain our plan for a single day. And, you know, add to that our human resistance to change. And we can be in a mess.
And the other thing that kicks in is as we age developmentally, we become more risk averse because we've failed and we've had pain and we don't like it. And so one of the things I decided a long time ago, because I'm in the business of getting people to stretch. I'm in the business of getting people to move out of their comfort zone. So I decided a long time ago, if I was really going to kind of be able to know from where I spoke, that I had to walk the talk. So I decided years ago that once a year, I would do something that had two qualities. One is it would be very exciting, and the other one, it would scare me out of my mind. So, I did things like one year I walked on hot coals. I thought, well, that's right up there. That'd be another one year I actually repaired a relationship, and that was really scary. And that was really, that was a big one. And, we all do something when we're not doing what we do. So when I'm not doing this, I'm an endurance athlete. And I started at 56 doing long distance triathlons. And
that has a question in the audience. Endurance athlete, runner,
yes,
pole vaulter.
No, I'm an Ironman. I'm a Ironman triathlete. So that's a 140.6 mile event where you swim 2.4 miles, you run 112 miles, and then you run a marathon. You ride a bike 112 miles, and you run a marathon. So I started when I was 56. And it's amazing what you can do when you don't know what you can do. And so, here I am, I just turned 70, and, I was so excited this year because I was going to be the baby in my age group, the 70 to 74 age group. I aged up and I was all excited. So next year I'll just be a toddler because I'll be 71. So I was, but that was the thing that I decided. Ironman was one of the things I decided to do because, I thought, now this terrifies me. So, there's at one part of the race that I do, there's a 7-mile descent down a mountain. Not a hill, it's a mountain. You go down this thing about 40 miles an hour plus on a bike. And I'm like, well, that's pretty terrifying. So, when you do this, though, as an adult, when we go into these areas where we are hesitant, it doesn't matter whether it's starting a business or going someplace you really wanted to go, or to your son's experience flying that plane. Really, it doesn't really matter what it is. When we do that, we own something now. Like, we own something that no one can take away from us when we have that experience. And there is a level of self-confidence, and it's really about credibility, because one of the things I find out that keep people stuck is they don't have a lot of credibility with themselves anymore.
Oh.
You think about that, so what happens is in their head, they say, I'm going to do this. And the voice goes, no, you're not. Yeah, I am. No, you're not. You said you were going to do it. No, I'm really going to do it. No, you're not. No, you're not. And so we don't believe us when we tell us stuff. So, I often say to somebody, if you had somebody that you needed to trust who had not been credible, what would they need to do to gain your trust? Well, they'd have to perform. I'm like, well, I don't know if you've noticed, but like, you're stuck in your own head all day. Everywhere you go, there you are. So, you hang around yourself all day. And part of the decision to really be able to just move your life the way you really want it to is to have this, you have to have a high level of belief. And I find what these races do for me is my confidence is like sky high. My ability to focus is just lights out. And I think that people need to find kind of what their secret sauce is. Like, what is it they really feel like they do really well, that they like to do more of or do better. And then you go work on that.
Wow. Well, Michael, men have the Ironman thing.
Yes.
What is it that women would possibly want to do that would prove that they have what it takes?
Well, in the Ironman is the brand, so males and females are called an Ironman. That is the when you cross the finish line. And the other thing I would like to say is this, that people often ask me, like, why in the world would you do this? Do you have a screw loose in your head or what? And I tell them, I said, the last 100 yards of this thing is an out-of-body experience. It's absolute magic. And how often as an adult do we have magic anymore? As little children, our lives are incredibly magical. Our youngest grandchild is 3 weeks, so he just got here. But
congratulations.
But his big brother is 2, and he's He loves everything. I mean, everything. We have a 3-year-old granddaughter. She feels the same way. I mean, it's like what happened to that? Where life was just a hoot. I mean, where did that go?
Well, we let it go. We don't
We did.
hold on to it.
We did, Lady Lou. We did. We let it go, and it's ours to take back.
Yes.
And it's ours. But to be able to do that, we have to make a decision to say, my job is not to live this life that everybody thinks is okay. I have people that are so responsible and so constricted and are so afraid they're going to be impulsive. I say to them, you couldn't be impulsive if I paid you. I guess it would be controlled spontaneity would be the best thing they could do. Maybe a planned surprise. I mean, maybe it would do. I'm like, you don't have to worry about that.
That's why that's one of the motives for me starting to live in my RV. My husband died in early 2016. And I looked at the tax situation and like property taxes on the house and so forth, and decided that I didn't want to use my money to just pay taxes. Uh-huh. So I sold the house and closed my brick and mortar business and gave up my radio program and bought a van and took off at the age of 74.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the interesting thing, I mean, that you just said is, whenever we make a change, the way we do it is we just do it. That's how you do it. You just do it. And some people are so smart that they have what I call smart people's disease, which is the ability to complicate tying your shoe if you're wearing a loafer. And they'll often say to me, well, it's not that easy, to which I respond, yeah, what if it is? Like, what if it is? And then you're stuck because that's been your go-to for a long time. Well, I have all these responsibilities. Well, people that do what they want are not irresponsible. They're just people doing what they want to do. And so we look at it, we have to make a choice. We're very much in this country sort of two choice kinds of creatures. Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, responsible, irresponsible. And there's only like two, you have to pick one. There's like 14 things a lot of times, or 22 things. And people will often say to me, well, I don't know what I want to do. And I'll say to them, well, if you don't, like, who would? Or oftentimes I'll just say, yeah, you do. And then they'll tell me. Or I'll just say, I'm not telling anybody, the door's shut. I'm not going to let anybody know. What if it was, I like the question, if it was just right, what would it look like? I think that's an interesting question to take in any part of your life. If my relationship was just right, if my health was just right, if what I was going to do this summer was just right, and we certainly don't control everything. I mean, if COVID hadn't got that message across, we're not getting it. But in any situation, there's two things over which we will always have control. That is, when the first one's going to be how we respond to circumstances, and the second is going to be how we treat other people. We own that. No one ever gets to decide that for us but us. And that can take you a long way.
When you treat other people, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
How are we going to treat other people? We get to choose that every time we're working with somebody.
We choose our
neighbors, our kids, our spouse, our friends.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what you said about credibility. Mm-hmm. And what kind of effect do you think us having to draw a pretty screeching halt to life due to COVID-19, what kind of effect might that have on our credibility with ourselves?
It depends on a couple of things. If you are, for example, a kind of person that needs, on a continuum, we need a certain amount of certainty and we need a certain amount of variety. And it's kind of like a number line. It kind of moves across. Some people, like, we need certainty. Like, we all assumed we would all appear here tonight. We assumed we go out to start our car was started. We didn't have some certainty, we would be a neurotic mess. But if we have too much certainty, our lives become boring and predictable. So paradoxically, we have a need for uncertainty or variety. And if we have too much variety, our lives become chaotic and out of control. So we sort of go back for certainty. So some people need much more variety, and some need much more certainty. People that need a lot more variety would have been able to handle this a little differently than people that needed certainty. One of the things that happened is, we began to throw this word around new normal, like it was a hand grenade, the new
right.
normal.
It did feel like a hand grenade to some people.
This is normal. Put on your seatbelt, wear your mask. I mean, this is normal now. This is like, well, I don't like my life to be like that. Well, it doesn't care. This is so part of what's happened is that people have decided that they're going to look at this thing and they're going to make it into an opportunity for them. So, you know, my daughter's a keynote speaker with speeches around the country, and all of it went away. And she had two choices, and the second choice wasn't really a choice. And so she became a virtual trainer, and has just dominated the space. She just took all of that time. You know, my son sells houses, and when this happened, is anybody going to buy a house? And he just said, well, sure, people are always going to buy a house. And so a lot of this, to your question, Ilene, is did people decide to look at this as half full or half empty? What did they choose? You know, what did they choose to put the emphasis on? Did they choose to say, you know, I'm going to focus on being creative? I mean, we know just statistically that knowledge workers have had an easier time with this, because it really doesn't matter where you are. If you're in the world of selling information, advice, and ideas to people, this is just a change of venue. This is just, I mean, Zoom is going to become a word like Kleenex or Xerox. I mean, you know, to Zoom someone.
Are you going to Zoom today?
Right. I did. I Zoom almost every day. I Zoom early and often. Yes, I do.
Michael, we've got some questions in the audience, and this definitely brings up a great point for me. They're asking about what keeps people coming back to you as a client. So if you could answer that question, and also tell us who's a good client for you. Who's the type of person that does really well when they come to see you and they're happy and satisfied?
Okay. So what keeps people
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. So what people come back to me for is that what they've entered into is a process. Now, if they're individuals, you know, there's kind of a beginning and middle and end to what they do. Like, let's suppose somebody's stuck because they don't want to do the work part of their life, and they come to me and I take them through a process. My goal is always with all my clients to get fired. You know, my goal is to educate people to independence. You know, it's a great day when I get canned. You know, I really like that. And oftentimes, so they will I become kind of like a plumber or an electrician. So if they have a leak or an outage, they'll come back to me. My organizational clients, though, that's a much different animal, because we have lots and lots of moving parts. And, you know, in many of my clients, and I do executive coaching, so, you know, the phrase is lonely at the top, it really is. And they just need a lot of times somebody to let their hair down with and really just talk about things that they just don't want people to know about, you know. And so I'll be with them for years sometimes. So those are the kinds of things that keep going back to me. The kind of people that I think I work best with are people to open to a new way of thinking. And, you know, one of the things that's helpful is that I always have kind of an advantage because they call me. So obviously something's not working because I can call them. So the only question is whether I'm the person that can help them or not, you know. And so that's really how I look at that. In my organizational clients, I'm always working with organizations that care about people, because if you didn't care about people, why would somebody like me come in? I mean, you know, I take a look at that. You can either view your employees as overhead, which you try to cut and control, or they're investments that you put time and resources in and stick with long term. So, you know, it's the latter group that are the ones that come to me.
So for those of you who are listening to our podcast or who can't take the time to write in this information down, I want you to know that down below in the comments section, we have all the links that we talk about tonight, a way for you to get a hold of Michael. He is offering a 15-minute session with him. And so you can email him at michael@unstucker.com, which I think is a great .com that you got, Michael.
Thank you.
And if you're the type of person that is wanting to get unstuck, why not? Why not give him a call and just chat for a minute? 15.
Yeah, open your mind.
Open your mind.
Open your mind. See what we can do. Yeah.
Michael, listening to you, I have a feeling that a person doesn't even need to be stuck to be learning things from you. You have a whole lot going on. So I'm sitting here going, well, I don't really feel stuck, but I'll bet you I could learn from Michael.
Right. Thank you.
Very, very wise. So, Michael, it's amazing what you can do with just using the mind,
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
people started.
Right.
Because
Right.
they're on a roll. It's like going downhill. They
Right.
pick up momentum. Is that kind of what you do?
Yes, it's really, one of the things we know, I'm fascinated about a lot of things. One of the things that really fascinates me is the brain. Everybody has one. It's really kind of cool to know how it works because they all kind of work in the same kind of way. And we used to think that the brain was kind of like a hard drive, and now we know that the brain's more like a muscle, and that energy follows attention. There's a whole science of what's called neuroplasticity, that you can actually rewire your brain. That we know that neurons that fire together wire together, and so this whole notion of giving people, and what I really provide with people is another point of view. It's just another way of looking at things, and it's just based on just sort of how I've lived my life, and the people that my biggest teachers are my clients. I mean, it's not unusual for me to get off from a session and be like, whoa, that was like that was really smart. I mean, really, I didn't think that. That's really good. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, do you have an agenda when you meet? He said, everybody has an agenda. Some of them are written down and some of them are unspoken. I said, can I have that? May I steal that from you? And he said, sure. I said, that's really smart. I never heard that before. So, I just get, this kind of each one teach one. You just kind of get this, and I think that's part of what we're supposed to be doing. It's just sort of
Karen in our audience has another question for you. She wants to know if you practice your techniques on your family.
On my family. So that's a good question. So I would tell you a brief story. My bride of 40 years, I married way out of my league, way over my head. I can remember one day I had a very effective day. I think I was doing some time management, being half out of my mind. I came home and I decided I would not only consult with my wife, but point out what she needed to do and didn't do. She looked at me and she said, I married you. I did not hire you. You may leave that in the car. When it comes to my children, and I did. When it comes to my children, people will many times talk to me about issues related to their children. And one of my thoughts is, particularly if you have adult children, I think with adult children, the model that I work very hard to follow is advice with permission only. They are our children. They are not childlike. They are adults. And all we have to do is look at us and say, well, who do we want regulating our life and telling us what to do? And so I think it's okay. I have a suggestion. Would you like to hear it? And if they say no, then I think we just need to be quiet. I think that's been covered. So
what I've learned in my work is that if it's not a clear yes, it is a no.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And you can just, if you're around them, you can just see from the body language, if you have half a brain, it's kind of like, well, that didn't land well, so never mind. I mean, I try to maintain the thought that, the world was fine before I got here. It's going to be okay after I leave. I mean, I really don't think. I mean, so much of these seeds I need to sow everywhere, particularly if somebody didn't ask me into their garden. So I think that's important.
Oh, that is just so amazing, Michael. I'm so tickled that we found you.
Oh, thank you. It's great.
Your information is like a million miles ahead of so many.
Oh.
And being creative and being spontaneous, that's who I am. I don't like to plan things too far ahead. Mm-hmm. I want to just do it when it comes up.
Right. And I think what's important to people is, if something works, I think it's officially a good idea. I only, as long as somebody wants to do something and it's not illegal, immoral, unethical, I don't care what they do. I mean, go. Well, it's never been done before. Well, everything that was ever done had never been done before. So that's not a big deal. Every job there ever wasn't. So, I mean, that's people come and like, well, nobody's done this. I'm like, well, first of all, do you know everybody? Have you met over 7 billion people? Because I have not, so I don't actually know. There's 4 nonsense words you have to be careful about. Everybody, nobody, always, and never. When those words come out of somebody's mouth, meaningful communication has temporarily stopped. Those are nonsense words.
I like that.
We have another question in the audience, and it's a long one, so I'm not going to put it up on the screen. I'll just kind of give you her general concept here, and that is, she's saying that we're all coaches, all of us, in our own businesses, and can we give a positive sentence that gives everyone the feel of us? And my answer to that, thank you, Karen, is that I find that most people they really don't want my advice. They want to be heard. And so I like to listen to what it is that they're trying to tell me, because when I try to solve their problems, or when I try to teach them a technology that they really don't want to learn, it doesn't do anything. They don't do anything with it. And so I've learned that I need to just sit back and listen to what they have to say. So that's my sentence. Ilene, you want to take the
Yeah, well, I just want to add one thing to that, because when I started my private practice as a therapist 50 years ago, I was wet behind the ears, and I'd sit there listening to people's horrendous problems going, I don't know what to tell this person. and I came to the conclusion that most people don't have anybody to listen to them. And one of the key things that you can do is just listen. And when I listened, then I also was able to be more creative in helping them. So it helped. You have comment on that, Michael?
So I guess the way I look at it is, everybody has a story. We all have a story. And I think the important thing, going back to what Marian and Ilene, what both of you said, is that people want a safe place to be able to be. See, if you're heard, then you exist. You have to be, then you actually are if somebody hears it. And not only do you want to be heard, but, I like to ask that magic question, is there more about that? Oh, wow, you're like really interested. And I'm like, yeah, if I didn't do this for a living, I would do this anyway. Because I like to go to parties and just like find out who people are. Oh, William, what did you do?
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Tell me more. Because I think people are fascinating.
Yes, they are.
And everybody has a story, and it's just, when you want to hear their story, they just light up. They just light up. A lot of people are just so self-conscious. Lady Lou, what's your one sentence?
What is my what?
Your one sentence that you would have. Your one sentence.
If somebody wanted to know what?
They just wanted to know, like, who are you? Like, what is you?
Who I am? Yeah. Well, I'm a person who makes stuff up.
Great.
Those are MSU, make stuff up.
Yeah.
I've been the queen of networking in Houston. Now I'm Lady Lou, the baby boomer babe. And who knows, when I hit 80, I might be somebody new.
Yes, I really think that there is a triathlete named Lou Hollander, and Lou Hollander is one of my heroes because I need something to aspire to when I grow up. Lou Hollander is 90 and still competing. And Lou Hollander just sold a gentleman a parcel of land. He's holding the mortgage, and it's a 30-year mortgage. He said, I'll be there to collect in 30 years. And so I really do look at my life, and I think the next 30 years are the best ones that are ahead of me.
Yes.
So I think I have 2 or 3 basic beliefs. I believe that age is just a number.
Yes.
I believe that there's no expiration date on dreams. I believe magic's real, and I believe anything really is possible. And I really try to, those are the kind of messages that I bring to people. And some people are just so stuck with their prehistoric notion or what they were told. I'll say to people, maybe you can and maybe you can't, but not because somebody else said so. What a lame reason not to do something with your life. So let's see. So somebody who has never lived my life for a day will decide what I do, and then I will do that because they said so. That's a bad trade. I don't like that trade. That's a bad trade.
I'm always telling people one thing, and that is ask. Because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So if you feel you need someone to tell you what to do, or you need some feedback or whatever, just ask. Ask your friends. Lady Lou talks about asking your friends what it is that you want to do, because on Mondays we have the work from home show, and a lot of people not sure what they want to do, what do they want to get paid for and be responsible for, right? So ask questions, be curious. This is natural curiosity after all.
Yeah.
Right?
There's always an answer. There's
Yeah.
always an answer. If you have if you don't have if you don't get an answer to the questions you ask in life, try asking a different question. Don't
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I have something to say about that. This is really important. Listen, everybody, now pay attention. So I used to
Okay.
run
say
a
this once.
quantum physics study group, okay? And in this quantum physics study group, we would have this conversation about how we're going to make things different than they are.
Hmm.
And one of the people came to us and said, well, I work at a really nice grocery store. And when I ask people how they are, I get these horrible, sad stories. And she said, I just can't stand working there anymore because it's just so, it makes me feel terrible. So what we had her do was ask a different question. Thank you very much, Michael.
You're welcome
So
very much.
the question that we had her ask everybody was, what's the best thing that has happened to you today? And her life changed like that instantly because they could only respond with what was the best thing that happened to them that day.
It's so interesting you said
See,
that. There was a convenience store right up the road a few years ago, and I would be out when you used to go out and actually drive places to work. And I was going to a client, and I would notice that this place would be incredibly crowded. I mean, it's like you couldn't fit people in with a shoehorn. And I'm like, they're just going in there to get coffee or something. I went in there, and the lady that was waiting on people, they would get the coffee, but they would also get, oh, good morning, sweetheart. How are you, darling? Oh, how is the baby? They were going to get the love. They weren't going to get the coffee. Well, a few months later, I'm driving by. Now it looks like a ghost town. Somebody had stolen her and hired her to come to another store. And they were going there just because, I often tell people we know things about the people we work with, but we don't know the people we work with. So we don't know just the value of a kind word. Almost all my clients, I've given this thing to hang on their wall, and it simply says, because nice matters. Because nice matters. That's all. Why be not? Because in we call it the little guy room here in the playroom for all the children. There's a big sign that says because kindness matters.
Yeah.
I have that on my refrigerator. I'm not going to go and get it right now.
Yeah,
But kindness matters. I love that.
it does.
It's
It
so
matters.
true.
You just don't know how a kind word is going to touch another human being. You just don't know that, and I believe it's still free. I think so. I mean, they haven't raised the price on it recently, and you can get it anywhere you want. I mean, it's available 24 hours a day, and it's like, well, why? I remember being at a job site for a construction client, and this guy came in, and he was all agitated, and he said, there's a subcontractor out there. And I said, okay. He goes, every time he does something, he wants me to thank him. I said, well, what was that trading on the London Exchange for this morning? Is that still zero? He said, I said, well, thank him. He said, well, he'll want more. I said, well, then thank him again. Like, so what? It's free, and it means the world to him. I mean, it's like, that is it. My daughter calls it the soul behind the role. Do we know the soul behind the role? There's a soul behind that role. There's a human being back there that oftentimes just needs attention and acknowledgement. What everybody's mentioned is they just need somebody to sometimes just listen to them and say, how are you? And what did you do today? And what's the best thing that happened? And that just can mean the world to people. And it's
It
free.
does. It does. And it changed this lady's life, I'm telling you. I'm really happy to have had you on the show tonight, Michael. Thank you, Lady Lou, for reaching out to Michael and finding him and bringing them to us.
You're
And
welcome.
I want you all to know that you can email him at michael@unstucker.com. He has a free 15-minute talk that you can just email him and let him know you want to talk, and he's more than willing. And I can tell that he's the type of person that's going to make you smile, and you're going to feel better when you do. So why not, right, Michael? Thank you very much for
That's
coming today.
a
Do you
great
have any
gift.
last words for us before you take off?
Yes, anything possible.
Ah,
Yes, it's so beautiful, Michael, because you're spontaneous. And I think if more people were spontaneous, the world would be happier, don't you?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. You know, we're here for such a short period of time. I think that this is, the first line in Scott Peck's book, The Road Less Traveled, is life is hard. Yeah, but life's amazing.
Yes.
That's incredible.
May be hard, but it is amazing. Ilene, it's always wonderful to spend time with you, and Lady
My
Lou, you
pleasure.
too.
Thank
Yes.
you all. And for those of you who are watching or listening to us, thank you. Thank you for asking your questions. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Yes.
Y'all be good now.
We love
Good
you,
night.
Healthy.
Bye.
Michael.